One more thing that I want to include here. Don't take this just with a grain of salt. Don't just take this with just a grain of salt. Take this with the entire salt shaker of what I'm about to tell you, because I don't know if this is true, but I heard something that supposedly, and again, allegedly, this could be, as the kids say, oh, this is cap. This actually could be cap. I want to give you the real reason that Lamar Jackson is struggling this season. As a Ravens fan, as someone that has watched Lamar Jackson play all season and all of last season as well, I'm going to tell you exactly what's going on. A lot of people are going to say you're making excuses for Lamar Jackson and all that type of stuff. You can't expect for Lamar to literally be the entire offense for the Baltimore Ravens. And that's pretty much exactly what's going on. He is the only reason that we're even in games. If it wasn't for him and our defense, this wouldn't be a 6-3 team. Let's take it back to last offseason. They could come back next year with a good draft, with a good free agency period, and really compete for a Super Bowl. And that's what everybody was expecting this season from the Ravens, even ourselves, even the flock. I think that's what everybody was expecting. After last season, after what we did, we went 14-2, came up short in the playoffs, but we thought we could have a bounce back year this year, have a pretty good record, probably go 13-3 at the worst. 14-2 might be a repeat, maybe even 15-1. That's the level that everybody was expecting for the Baltimore Ravens to be playing at this year. And it's obvious that they're not. They're currently 6-3. And at this point, I don't think anybody was expecting us to have 3 losses. Let's be real here. And especially not one of them being to the New England Patriots with Cam Newton no longer having Tom Brady. So Lamar Jackson has been struggling this season. He's not having the same year as he did last year. Last year, he put up 3,100 yards in the air, 36 touchdowns, led the league in passing touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, and obviously rushed for 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns. So what's going on with Lamar? And what I'm going to say here in this video is nothing that the Ravens flock doesn't know. If you're a Ravens fan, you already know all of this stuff, right? This is more so for people that are kind of like, they listen to the media, they listen to social media, and they basically believe what everybody says, that they're just like, oh no, Lamar has just regressed. Everybody has figured him out. Everybody had an offseason to figure him out. So that's exactly what's going on. No, to me, that's not at all what's going on. Yes, Lamar hasn't been playing at the same level, but I think that you have to take account into other factors. What's going on around him? Let's go back to the offseason. We knew we needed a receiver. The Ravens flock, we knew we needed a receiver. It was clear to everybody. You know, quite simply, I love Eric DeCosta. I'm always talking about him, how he's Don DeCosta, the Godfather. He's a great GM. I love the moves he makes, but he did not do a good enough job to support his young quarterback. The loss of Marshall Yanda, our right guard, who is a first-team All-Pro pretty much year in and year out, or he was, first ballot Hall of Famer, retired, right? He retired, and man, he was just instrumental to what we did on offense last season. He was one of the biggest reasons why we were able to just dominate teams on the ground. Marshall Yanda being gone, that hurt immensely. And the Ravens didn't really do much to replace that. And I know it's almost impossible to replace that level of play at the right guard position. So what the Ravens did, they brought in DJ Fluker, who they don't even put at the guard position. For some reason, they actually have him playing swing tackle for whatever reason. We all thought that he was going to play right guard. And obviously he wasn't going to step in for Marshall Yanda and play the same level, but he was at least going to make it so there wasn't that big of a drop-off. At least that's what we were hoping at right guard. But instead, they draft a rookie, Tyree Phillips, in the 3rd round. And he was the one that got the start at right guard. He had plenty of struggles. And you know that was going to happen. He's not Marshall Yanda. Nobody will be Marshall Yanda. You still have Ronnie Stanley on the left side. You still have Orlando Brown on the right side. This was obviously in the offseason. So you had 2 good tackles. Nothing to worry about. You still had Bradley Bozeman starting at left guard. He's solid. And you still had Matt Skura, but he was coming off an injury. We just didn't know how he was going to play. And I think it's clear to everybody watching them that Matt Skura has struggled, especially with snaps. We saw it come to a head against the Patriots. Whether it's the rain, whether it's his injury, whatever it is, it's been bad. It's been bad. The offensive line has just not been the same. We had probably one of the best top 5 offensive lines in the league last season. So, yeah, I'm not blind to it. That's one of the biggest reasons that Lamar was able to succeed so much, that he had great protection. And he also could just be behind Marshall Yanda. He could follow Marshall Yanda, to the promised land, pretty much, to wherever he wanted to go. On 4th and 1, 4th and 3, you just give it to Lamar and tell him, just go right behind Marshall Yanda. That's all you have to do, right? And it worked. It worked every single time. We saw it multiple times against the Seahawks, against the 49ers. We've seen it so many times, and this year it hasn't been the same. We didn't replace that, and obviously it's hard to replace that. But yeah, the offensive line there wasn't a lot of work put into it this offseason. There wasn't. I know we signed DJ Fluker, like I said, and we drafted Tyree Phillips, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. You have to give more help to the offensive line. So there's that factor. Then the wide receiver position. Everybody knew that the Ravens needed a wide receiver. I've been clamoring for it ever since Lamar Jackson became the starter. I want a big-bodied possession number 1 receiver, and you would think it makes sense, obviously, because Lamar Jackson likes to hit the tight ends, right? That's his favorite target. He loves Mark Andrews. Hayden Hurst and him never really had a connection, but Nick Boyle, he loved to hit those tight ends. So you would think that would translate to the receiver position. Oh, get him a big body, right? But no, the Ravens don't do that. They had an opportunity, and they tried to get DeAndre Hopkins. I'm assuming that they weren't willing to give up a first-round pick. At least that's what I'm assuming that happened. Or you could make the argument that, hey, maybe Bill O'Brien didn't want DeAndre Hopkins in the AFC, so he shipped him over to the Cardinals for a second-round pick. But if you're the Ravens, give the Texans 3 first-round picks. It doesn't matter. You're trying to win a Super Bowl this year. You got to get DeAndre Hopkins on your team no matter what, right? You have to sell them the farm, literally. Sell them your entire draft for DeAndre Hopkins. Give them the next 5 years worth of first-round draft picks because you're trying to win a Super Bowl, right? But that didn't happen. Whatever. It's DeAndre Hopkins. Let's just say maybe the Texans didn't want him in the AFC. Okay, fair enough. Then you have Stephon Diggs. Guess what? He was on the Vikings. He was looking for a team. Now, maybe one could argue that maybe Stephon Diggs didn't want to come to the Ravens. That's a possibility, but he went to the Bills. Go out and get him. Go out and get him. I just don't understand why you didn't make a move. And guess what? There was also Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson was a free agent, and he's been playing extremely well in Carolina. He's been playing extremely well in Carolina. Maybe, I don't know if he would have played at the same level in this Ravens offense because we just can't develop wide receivers. We suck at coaching wide receivers. It's just always perpetually that we're trash at developing wide receivers and we can't coach these guys. It's crazy. But listen, you draft you draft Marquise Brown in the first round, 5'9" dude, 160 pounds. I said it at the beginning of the draft. I did not like Marquise Brown. Now, obviously, I've changed my tune a little bit on him. I do believe in him a little bit more because I saw what he did in his rookie season. But let's be honest, he has not performed to that same level this season. And we thought that he was going to be better. We thought he was going to be much more improved because he had screws in his feet in his rookie season. He was very skinny. He put on some muscle. We thought he was going to be faster. We thought he was going to be developing his routes because he was working out with AB, with his cousin. We thought that Marquise Brown was going to come out here this year and just tear it up because we saw the type of chemistry that Lamar Jackson and Marquise had in his rookie season. It was insane. Like, Lamar made some just crazy throws to Marquise that would get completed. Like, you could just see that those two had a connection. I always mentioned it in the offseason. I mentioned it during last season that Marquise and Lamar have this connection. This season, it's like they're two different people. Marquise and Lamar do not have that chemistry at all, whatsoever. That chemistry is completely gone, and I don't know where it went. I have no idea where it went. Now, there's a possibility that everybody's double teaming him, but not really, because when you watch the All-22, he's just not beating the corners. Like, he's getting bullied, right? His route running has a lot left to be desired. Let's be honest. But hey, I'm not gonna criticize his route running because I'm not a football expert. I'm just a fan. You had receivers like DK Metcalf, you had AJ Brown, Terry McLaurin, you had receivers available that could have fit better for this team, in my opinion. Now, obviously, it's hearsay. It's, it's looking back. You never know what'll happen if those receivers are actually on the team. But listen to those five receivers, some of those receivers that I mentioned. Let's think about the five receivers that I mentioned: Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, and Robbie Anderson. What do all five of those have in common? Not only could they have been Ravens if we actually made the right moves, but also those five receivers are leading the league in receiving yards. And that's the most frustrating thing about it. That's the most frustrating thing about it, is that you see guys like the Chiefs. Now, they already had great weapons on offense, but they're surrounding Patrick Mahomes with amazing weapons. I'm not at all trying to say that Lamar is on the same level as Mahomes. Don't calm down, Chiefs fans. I know what you want to say. Listen, obviously, he's not, right? But we haven't seen Lamar in that type of offense. Even the Bills are putting an offense around Josh Allen for him to succeed. A good offensive line and great receivers. Lamar doesn't have that. He doesn't have great weapons. Not only talking about the receivers and the offensive line, the Ravens ran the most 3 tight end sets in 2019. What happens in the offseason? You ship off Hayden Hurst to the Atlanta Falcons for a second-round pick. What do you take with that second-round pick? J.K. Dobbins, a running back. I like J.K. Dobbins, but shout out to my guy Sonny from SCG Sports. He mentioned it. Running back was not a huge need. You could have taken a receiver. There were receivers available, and instead you waited until the 3rd round to take Devin Duvernay. Nothing against Devin Duvernay. I love the dude. I think he's a great receiver. He's a slot receiver. He's very physical, and I want to see more of him on the field. He's a good player. He is a good player. You just don't see the Ravens really building up the offense around Lamar Jackson. So again, a lot of people are going to say these are excuses. I get it. I understand it. But you got to think about the difference from 2019 to 2020 and how he's struggling now, because the Ravens just can't build an offense for their young quarterbacks. It's the same thing happened with Joe Flacco. Now, I know people are going to say he sucks. He's Joe Flacco, but he's the GOAT. Flack GOAT, elite dragon. I don't want to hear shit about that. And it's not only the things around him. Let's not forget about that. Let's also mention the play calling. Greg Roman, a very questionable play calling, right? Let's not forget about that. All those are factors of why Lamar Jackson has been struggling. That's not to just totally say that he doesn't deserve any of the blame. That's not what I'm trying to say here, because yes, he hasn't been as accurate as last season. He has been missing a few more throws from what it looks like. I mean, can you blame him? Can you blame him with just the way that this offense has been performing around Lamar Jackson? Like, you're expecting Lamar to literally be your only offense. Like, he is the only guy on offense, literally. If you had Lamar Jackson on the Chiefs and he had all those weapons around him and he was just sucking, okay, yes, you can say, listen, Lamar's not it. He does not, he's just not it. But how can you say that he's not it when he's literally the only guy on the offense? Explain that to me. That's what I want to know. All I'm saying is that, yes, a bunch of people are blaming this on Lamar himself, and that's fine. I understand, put the blame on him because he hasn't been playing extremely well. That's fine. But don't just completely overlook what the franchise and the organization has failed him in doing so and not put an offense around him. One more thing that I want to include here. When I mention this, when I read this out, I don't want this to be taken as truth, okay? I don't want this to be seen as this is exactly what's going on with Lamar. This is the reason that I wanted to make this video, because of what somebody told me earlier today. But listen, I want to reiterate this. Don't take this just with a grain of salt. Don't just take this with just a grain of salt. Take this with the entire salt shaker of what I'm about to tell you, because I don't know if this is true. I really don't know if this is true. I'm not going to say who told me this. I'm not going to say where I got it from, but I heard something that supposedly, and again, allegedly, this could be, as the kids say, oh, this is cap. This actually could be cap, but this is what somebody told me. I want to read to you what somebody told me about Lamar Jackson. Supposedly, again, allegedly, I keep having to say this because everybody's going to say, oh, you're fucking lying, Joe Noobo. You don't know what you're talking about. Allegedly, I keep having to tell you this. Somebody played Madden with Lamar Jackson. Okay. Again, this could be a lie. I'm just telling you what somebody told me. Okay. I have to keep saying it because you know how people are in the comments. Supposedly, Lamar told him, I'm not trying to make excuses, but the reason why I'm not playing at my peak is because the hype is gone. People don't realize that people that watch us play in the stadium brings me high energy, and I have not been feeling that lately. I'm sorry, but it's been boring, and you can see that from other teams as well. Again, I have to reiterate this. That could be false. That could just be something that's completely made up. It's absolutely a lie. Yes, it could be. But if it's true, that's interesting to think about. What if that's a factor as well? I'm not saying that it's to that extent that Lamar is just purposefully not playing at a high level because the crowd's not there. But I could believe that football players feed off of the crowd's energy. I think that's totally feasible. So I think that could potentially be a factor. Not at all trying to say that that's the reason that Lamar has been struggling this season. That's not what I'm trying to say here. Okay. And again, I keep having to say it, man, because I know how people are in the comments. They always they hear one thing and then they run with it. This could be entirely false. Okay. I could see how there could be some truth to that. That could be one of the factors to the reasons that Lamar has not been playing that well, because there's no crowd in the stands. There's no energy to feed off of. There's no, football. I think that the audience has a huge effect on games that really not many other sports have. So that's just kind of what I wanted to throw out, man. So let me know how you feel about it in the comments. Again, I know people are going to say you're making excuses for Lamar. That's not what I'm trying to do here. All I'm trying to do is to put things into perspective, right? Because just try to put yourself in a Ravens fan's shoes, and you see that your team is not really surrounding oh yeah, Dez Bryant. Oh, 35-year-old Dez Bryant. Oh yeah, what's he going to do? Come on. Put things into perspective. Would you be happy if your young third-year quarterback, who was just an MVP, was not given any they didn't put any stock into the receiver position? They got rid of one of his main weapons in Hayden Hurst, right? And I'm not just talking about for Lamar himself, but for the offense as a whole. Think about all those things. Just think about all those things. Put yourself into a Ravens fan's shoes and think about why Lamar might be struggling this year.